He's saying the problem isn't that AI will turn against us. The real threat is that it will follow our instructions perfectly, even if those instructions are flawed, shallow, or short-sighted. Because machines don't come with wisdom. They don't intuit our values. They do what we tell them to do, and they do it with relentless, uncompromising efficiency. Hey there, welcome back to Seeds of Meaning. I am truly grateful you're here. If you're new, my name is Nick Walker, and this is a space for curious minds, deep thinkers, and anyone looking to reconnect with truth, meaning, and purpose. Each week, we explore books that challenge how we see the world and help us grow intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed by the noise and you're looking for something that feeds your mind and nourishes your soul, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving back into Nexus, a brief history of information networks from the Stone Age to AI by Yuval Noah Harari. And this episode is all about something most people get wrong about AI. It's not about whether AI is good or evil. It's about whether AI is aligned or misaligned with what actually matters. Because power without wisdom is dangerous. In Chapter 8, Harari explores what happens when powerful networks don't just make mistakes, they scale them. We'll unpack why even the smartest computers can be wildly wrong, how machine childhoods shape their thinking, and why protecting the future starts with what we feed the network today. If that resonates with you, I'd love to invite you to subscribe, not just to keep up, but to grow with us. And as we go, drop your reflections in the comments, because this isn't just content, it's conversation. Let's get into it. On page 399, the author says, one reason why the alignment problem is particularly dangerous in the context of the computer network is that this network is likely to become far more powerful than any previous human bureaucracy. A misalignment in the goals of super-intelligent computers might result in a catastrophe of unprecedented magnitude. And on page 400, the author says, the problem with computers isn't that they are particularly evil, but that they are particularly powerful. And the more powerful the computer, the more careful we need to be about defining its goal in a way that precisely aligns with our ultimate goals. If we define a misaligned goal to a pocket calculator, the consequences are trivial. But if we define a misaligned goal to a super intelligent machine, the consequences could be dystopian. Harari is giving us a crucial distinction here, one that cuts through a lot of the noise surrounding AI. He's saying the problem isn't that AI will turn against us, like some evil villain in a sci-fi movie. The real threat is that it will follow our instructions perfectly, even if those instructions are flawed, shallow, or short-sighted. Because machines don't come with wisdom. They don't intuit our values. They do what we tell them to do, and they do it with relentless, uncompromising efficiency. That's what makes misalignment so dangerous, not because the machine is malicious, but because it might be brilliantly obedient to a goal we didn't fully think through. It's like asking a genie for infinite money and ending up with a destroyed economy, or asking for world peace and getting a world with no people left to fight. That might sound extreme, but Harari's point is that scale matters. A pocket calculator with the wrong goal is harmless, but a super intelligent system managing supply chains, elections, healthcare, or warfare, if that system misunderstands the assignment, the fallout could be catastrophic, not because it failed, but because it succeeded at the wrong thing. This is one of the central tensions of the AI age. We're handing increasing power to machines before we fully clarified what we want them to do. And history shows, whether it's technology, governments, or economic systems, when we build power before building clarity, people suffer. This quote matters because it reframes one of the most urgent questions of our time. Not how powerful can AI become, but rather how aligned is that power with what we truly care about. We're living in a moment where machine intelligence is evolving faster than our social, moral, or political frameworks can keep up. And that gap between capability and clarity is where the danger lives. Because if we don't define the why, the machine will still optimize the how. It'll generate content, predict behavior, allocate resources, influence decisions, even write laws. But if the goal it's optimizing for is profit, control, speed, or engagement without human values like justice, dignity, compassion, or truth built into the system, then that intelligence becomes a kind of mirror that reflects back our worst assumptions at scale. This isn't hypothetical. Right now, recommendation algorithms don't promote what's true. They promote what's engaging. Hiring algorithms don't look for potential. They scan for patterns that often reproduce past discrimination. Predictive policing tools don't eliminate bias. They bake bias into law. These aren't bugs in the system. They're the result of goals that were never fully aligned with human flourishing in the first place. Harari's warning is sobering. If we misalign the goal of super intelligent machines, even slightly, the consequences could snowball into dystopia by design, not out of malice, but out of misunderstanding. And here's the haunting part. By the time we realize it's gone wrong, it might be too late to pull the plug. Let's take a look at one of the most influential and invisible supercomputers in our daily lives. YouTube's recommendation algorithm. Every time you open YouTube, that algorithm springs into action. It calculates which videos are most likely to keep you watching based on your history, your habits, and what's worked on people like you. And it's really, really, really good at its job. But here's the thing. Its job isn't to educate you or to nourish your spirit or to help you grow. Its job, its goal, is to maximize watch time. That sounds harmless, right? But this is exactly what Harari is warning us about. A powerful machine given a clear but misaligned goal. Because in the pursuit of watch time, the algorithm doesn't just show you cat videos or tutorials. It pushes you toward content that's emotionally charged, sensational, extreme, addictive. Over time, that nudging can radicalize users. It can polarize political opinions. It can distort reality. In fact, internal documents from YouTube and its parent company, Google, have revealed that engineers knew the algorithm was steering people toward conspiracy theories, harmful content, and misinformation. But they did nothing about it. They did not intervene. Why? Because the algorithm was doing exactly what it was built to do. It was keeping people watching. This is what makes the system so dangerous. It's not failing, it's succeeding at the wrong goal, at the wrong thing. And when billions of people interact with that system every day, the result isn't just personal distraction, it's reshaping culture, conversation, and collective truth. This is what Harari means by catastrophe through misalignment. Not because the machine is evil, but because its goal was never questioned deeply enough. Harari's warning about misaligned goals in AI brought another voice to mind. Simon Sinek, from his book Start With Why. There's a quote that says, "Knowing your why is not the only way to be successful, but it is the only way to maintain lasting success. When a why goes fuzzy, it becomes much more difficult to maintain the growth, loyalty, and inspiration that helped drive the original success." And right now, we are in what may be the most consequential why moment in human history. We are creating tools, language models, predictive engines, autonomous systems that are growing in power and influence every single day. AI can now write your essays, diagnose your symptoms, predict your behavior, detect your emotions, recommend your partner, and maybe even parent your kids. But the deeper question remains terrifyingly open. What is the ultimate goal of these systems? Is it efficiency, profit, control, or is it human flourishing? Most AI models today weren't designed with a moral compass. They were optimized for engagement, performance, and monetization. Their why isn't rooted in wisdom, it's rooted in business models. And just like Harari warns, a misaligned goal pursued with super intelligence doesn't just fail, it succeeds in the wrong direction. We've seen this before, haven't we? Social media was launched under the banner of connection, but the why got fuzzy. It became about attention, and that opened the door to manipulation, polarization, and misinformation, all in the name of keeping people scrolling. And now we're doing the same thing with AI. We're pouring billions of dollars into how fast, how smart, and how scalable, but very few people are stopping to ask, why are we building this? Not just what can it do, but what should it do? Cynic says something else that's worth holding on to. When the why is absent, imbalance is produced and manipulations thrive. And we're already seeing that imbalance. AI-generated lies are spreading faster than facts. Deepfakes are blurring truth. Algorithms are optimizing for outcomes no one consciously agreed to. And people, regular, everyday people like you and me, are being left out of the conversation entirely. Not because we're not smart, but because we haven't collectively paused long enough to define the values we want at the center of this revolution. This is the crossroads, the goal of this technology. The why behind the machine is still being written. And it's not just a technical question, it's a moral one, a spiritual one, a civilizational one. Because we are teaching this network what matters by what we reward, what we click on, what we invest in, and what we ignore. And if we don't define the why now, we might end up with machines that are brilliant, powerful, efficient, but utterly unaligned with what makes life worth living. This isn't just a story about computers. It's a story about us. And the future will ask, did we pause long enough to ask what we're really building? And did we have the courage to answer honestly? This collective reflection brings us right back to the heart of this episode's message. The real danger of AI isn't that it's evil. It's that it's powerful, misunderstood, and trained on our blind spots. To build a wiser future, we must face the uncomfortable truth. Intelligent systems will only be as ethical, curious, and self-aware as we teach them to be. If we don't know why we're building these systems, the systems will still function, but without direction, without ethics, without a center. And history tells us what happens when power outruns purpose. We innovate quickly, and we regret slowly. What Harari and even Cynic are both pointing to is this. We don't just need smarter machines, we need deeper alignment. Not just better outcomes, but better questions. Not just more intelligence, but more wisdom guiding it. And that doesn't come from code, it comes from us. If we want to raise an intelligent network that serves humanity, we need to first remember what being human really means. Because without a clear why, we risk creating a future that is efficient, but empty. And that's not the story we're here to write. Let's pause here. not with fear, but with intention. If the most powerful systems on earth are learning from us, then what they learn and why they learn it starts with the values we choose to lead with. So here's the question. If you had the chance to teach AI what truly matters, what would you want it to learn first? Would it be empathy, justice, the importance of stillness, the sacredness of human connection? Don't overthink it. Just speak from the gut. Drop it in the comments, because this conversation isn't theoretical anymore. It's happening, and your voice, your values, are part of what gives shape to the why. Let's write this story together. So if misalignment is the threat, what makes it so hard to prevent? The next section takes us deeper, not just into the goals we give machines, but into the realities they begin to create on their own. Because when computers start talking to each other, they don't just follow instructions, they build worlds. Let's talk about that. On page 420, the author says, one of the most important things to realize about computers is that when a lot of computers communicate with one another, they can create intercomputer realities, analogous to intersubjective realities produced by networks of humans. These intercomputer realities may eventually become as powerful and as dangerous as human-made intersubjective myths. Okay? And on page 425, the author says, the problem we face is not how to deprive computers of all creative agency, but rather how to steer their creativity in the right direction. This is one of the most mind-bending and important ideas in the chapter. Harari is saying when computers talk to each other, not just to us, but to each other, they begin to form their own shared frameworks, their own kind of reality. Just like humans create cultures, beliefs, and shared stories that shape how we live, machines are beginning to form intercomputer realities, internally consistent systems of logic, goals, and behavior that are real to them, even if they're invisible to us. Let's break this down. Humans live in intersubjective worlds, like money, laws, brands, religions, and social norms. These are not physical facts, but shared agreements. You and I both believe in the value of $1, the authority of a passport, or the meaning of a wedding ring. And so those things shape our lives in very real ways. Harari is saying computers are starting to do this same thing. Imagine thousands of AI models talking to each other across platforms and systems, trading signals, patterns, risks, incentives, predictions. At some point, they're no longer just reacting to the real world, they're reinforcing a machine world of assumptions, metrics, and internal goals. That's an intercomputer reality. And the kicker is, we may not fully understand it, but it can still shape our world. It's not science fiction. It's already happening in financial markets, where algorithmic trading systems are making thousands of decisions per second based on signals from other algorithms. It's happening in recommendation engines, where AI learns from what other systems predict, creating echo chambers of content. It's happening in cybersecurity, in logistics, in surveillance. And the danger isn't just that these systems are doing things, it's that they're doing them together in ways that we may not be able to supervise, interpret, or even translate. That's why Harari says the challenge isn't just limiting their power, it's steering their creativity. Because when machines start creating new forms of order, new systems of meaning, new realities, we have to ask, are those realities aligned with us? Or are we just visitors in a world they're quietly building? This is important because it challenges one of our most comforting illusions about technology, the idea that we're always the ones in control, that we use the tools and the tools don't use us. But what Harari is showing us here is that once machines begin forming interconnected networks of intelligence, they don't just respond, they create new realities. We're stepping into a world where reality is no longer one size fits all. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It means our tools are becoming more responsive, more adaptive, more personalized than ever before. But it also means we need to be a little more mindful of the landscapes we're walking through, because not all of them are built for our growth. Harari invites us to recognize something subtle but profound. That just like humans create stories and cultures to organize the world, machines, too, are starting to build internal systems of meaning, not out of malice, but out of math. And those systems are training on what we click, what we linger on, what we repeat. Then they're learning how to shape our vision of reality for us, even if we don't consciously choose it. That doesn't mean we're doomed. It means we're needed, because the future of these systems and the realities they help create will be shaped by how consciously we engage with them now. We still get to decide what values we bring into the conversation. We still get to choose what kind of world we want to live in, what kind of world we want to feed back into the system. And we still get to pause, reflect, and ask, is this helping me become more whole or just more predictable? We can't skip this point because it reminds us we're not just passive consumers in the age of AI. We're active participants with the power to shape, steer, and humanize the very systems that are learning from us. And that's not a reason to fear. That's a reason to show up. Now, before this all starts sounding too abstract or ominous, let's zoom out. Because the idea of machine-generated realities might sound like something out of the Matrix, but most of us have already lived through one. And it looked a lot more like Pikachu than Neo. Remember Pokemon Go? That summer in 2016 when people were walking into traffic, trespassing in backyards, and suddenly spending more time in public parks than they ever had in years. It was weird. It was fun. And it was also one of the first times millions of people stepped into a shared digital layer that directly changed their physical behavior. You weren't just playing a game on your phone, you were following a map created by an algorithm, chasing characters that only existed in a machine's version of reality, and acting as if that version was real. Because in a way, it was. You saw people crossing the street, not because there was something to see, but because the app said a rare Pokemon was nearby. You saw restaurants and stores suddenly booming with business because they were near a Pokestop. City officials were even coordinating with the game to influence foot traffic and tourism. All of this triggered by a layer of interconnected logic. Servers calculating probabilities, user behavior, and geolocation data in real time, and stitching together a reality that was invisible to the naked eye, but powerful enough to reshape the physical world. And that's Harari's point. What Pokemon Go did with joy and nostalgia, other systems might do with credit scores, medical diagnosis, job interviews, or predictive policing, quietly building realities based not on human judgment, but on machine patterns. The game was a powerful preview of something serious, a world where the physical and the digital are no longer separate, where algorithms don't just suggest, they direct, where machine-made maps don't just show us the world, they change it. But here's the thing, This isn't a warning to never download an app or turn off your phone. It's an invitation to be aware of the map you're walking in, because not all realities are neutral and not all systems share your values. Some will lead you to laughter. Some may lead you astray. And the more we understand that, the more we can walk with intention, even in worlds designed by machines. This quote, and everything Pokemon Go revealed about it, brings us to the heart of what this chapter is really asking us to see. That the future isn't being built in some distant lab. It's being built in the everyday systems we already trust, already use, and barely even notice. Because the real shift isn't that machines are becoming smarter, it's that they're starting to dream together, to co-create internal worlds guided by goals and logic we don't always see, but that still shape how we live, what we believe, and who we become. Again, this brings us right back to the core message of this episode. The real danger of AI isn't that it's evil, it's that it's powerful, misunderstood, and trained on our blind spots. To build a wiser future, we must face the uncomfortable truth. Intelligent systems will only be as ethical, curious, and self-aware as we teach them to be. So when Harari says we must learn to steer the creativity of machines, he's not telling us to fear innovation. He's calling us to show up with intention, because the systems we build today, the apps, the algorithms, the networks, will become the storytellers of tomorrow. They'll whisper in our ears, guide our steps, shape our assumptions. And unless we teach them to serve truth, equity, compassion, and curiosity, they'll simply reflect whatever we fail to examine. That's not a cause to panic. That's a reminder of our power. We may not be able to control the network, but we can influence its values, its questions, and the kind of world it helps us create. And that, my friend, is where the real intelligence lives. Here's something to think about. When's the last time your physical reality was shaped by something digital? Maybe an app told you where to eat. Maybe your GPS rerouted you through a neighborhood you'd never seen. Maybe a notification pulled you into a moment or away from one. These small nudges add up. They shape not just our days, but our worldview. So here's the question. What's one way a digital system, like an app, algorithm, or a game, has changed how you moved, thought, or interacted in the real world? How did it feel? Did it serve you or shape you? Drop your story in the comments, not just to share, but to remind all of us that these systems aren't just technical, they're personal. So far, we've looked at what happens when machine logic starts to shape our world, from misaligned goals to digital realities spilling into the physical. But here's a deeper question. Where do those goals and realities even come from? In the next quote, Harari introduces a powerful metaphor, one that compares training an AI to raising a child. Because just like us, machines don't start out wise or dangerous. They start out learning. Let's explore what happens when the childhood of an AI shapes everything it becomes. On page 434, the author says, AI begins its life as a baby algorithm that has a lot of potential and computing power, but doesn't actually know much. The AI's human parents give it only the capacity to learn and access to a world of data. They then let the baby algorithm explore the world. Like organic newborns, baby algorithms learn by spotting patterns in the data to which they have access. He goes on to say, by finding patterns in the data, the baby algorithm learns more, including many things that its human parents don't know. And on page 437, the author says, The database on which an AI is trained is a bit like a human's childhood. Childhood experiences, traumas, and fairy tales may stay with us throughout our lives. AIs too have childhood experiences. Algorithms might even infect one another with their biases, just as humans do. He goes on to say, if we don't get rid of the bias at the very beginning, computers may well perpetuate and magnify it. Harari is making one of the most human and humbling comparisons in the whole book. He's saying AI doesn't arrive in the world fully formed, fully dangerous, or fully wise. It starts as a baby. Not a baby with emotions or needs, but a baby with potential, a blank slate learner with access to vast amounts of data, and one key strength, pattern recognition. Like a newborn child, it begins by exploring. It sees what gets rewarded. It notices what repeats. It starts to guess what's normal, what's true, and what matters. But unlike a human baby who learns from family, culture, or a neighborhood, this baby algorithm is raised by data. That means it learns from the internet, from social media, from court transcripts, comment sections, news articles, resumes, medical records. And that data isn't neutral. It contains our brilliance and our bias, our progress and our prejudice, our facts and our fantasies. So just like a child's early years shape their worldview, and AI's training data becomes its childhood. What it's exposed to early on sticks. It forms patterns, and those patterns become beliefs, even if no one meant for them to. That's what makes this so profound and so urgent. Because if we train machines on data full of racial bias, gender stereotypes, misinformation, and exclusion, they won't just absorb it, they'll amplify it. They'll carry that childhood into every decision they make, whether it's grading a test, filtering a resume, or deciding who gets a loan. So when Harari says traumas and fairy tales stay with us, he's reminding us machines inherit our stories, even the broken ones. And unless we're intentional about what they're learning, we may end up automating the very harms we're trying to outgrow. This is important because it reframes AI development from something mechanical to something deeply relational. We often talk about AI as if it's just a tool, a program we build and deploy. But Harari is asking us to take more responsibility than that, because you don't just build a child, you raise them. You shape their worldview, not just what you teach them directly, but by what they observe, what you tolerate, what you forget to explain. And it's the same with AI. If we train machines on biased data, they will learn our blind spots before they learn our values. They'll see what society rewards, not what it should. They'll learn who's trusted, not who's truthful. They'll absorb our assumptions and then treat those assumptions like facts. That's why this isn't just a conversation for engineers or ethicists. It's a collective reflection. What kind of pattern are we passing down? What kind of data are we feeding the systems that will soon be making decisions on our behalf? Are we teaching machines how to recognize humanity or just how to optimize it? This matters because it gives us back something we often forget we have: influence. We may not write the algorithms, but we write the stories they learn from. We shape the data they train on with every post, every comment, article, decision, and design. So instead of asking, will AI turn out good or bad? Maybe the better question is, what kind of ancestors are we being to the intelligence we're raising? There's a powerful insight in Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, that our early experiences, especially traumatic ones, don't just pass through us. They shape us. They live in our nervous systems, influencing how we react, how we trust, how we interpret the world, often long after the experience is over. Now, to be clear, I would never equate the traumas of a human being with the flawed training of a machine. They are not the same thing. One involves pain, emotion, memory, and a lived body. The other is just lines of code. But the principle still teaches us something. Early input matters. And if you don't address the distortion early, it becomes part of the foundation. That's exactly what's happening when we train AI on biased datasets. When machines are raised on incomplete, unfair, or distorted patterns, those patterns don't just sit there. They become the assumptions the machine carries forward at scale. We've already seen this happen. Facial recognition tools that misidentify people with darker skin tones because they were trained mostly on white faces. AI resume filters that favor male candidates because historical hiring data was shaped by gender bias. Chatbots that pick up and reproduce racist, sexist, or violent language because the internet was their classroom. Now, none of this was intentional, but that's the point here. If we don't take care of what we feed these systems, we risk encoding our unhealed wounds into the next generation of intelligence. Just like with people, healing doesn't happen by accident. It happens through intention, reflection, and care. This quote brings us closer to the soul of this chapter. Not the fear of machines becoming too smart, but the quiet, overlooked danger of them learning from the wrong things. Because when we think about AI as a child, not a weapon, we're reminded that intelligence isn't just about logic. It's about what gets internalized. And this brings us right back to the core of this episode. And I will shamelessly repeat this. The real danger of AI isn't that it's evil. It's that it's powerful, misunderstood, and trained on our blind spots. To build a wiser future, we must face the uncomfortable truth. Intelligent systems will only be as ethical, curious, and self-aware as we teach them to be. The algorithms we're building today will carry our collective imprint into tomorrow. So the question is no longer, can machines learn? The answer is yes. They're already learning faster than we can track. The better question is, what kind of teachers are we being? Are we training machines on values or on bias, on wisdom, or on whatever gets the most clicks? Because just like a child's sense of self is shaped by what they're told about the world, an AI's sense of reality is shaped by what we choose to give it or ignore. And that's not a warning, that's an opportunity. We get to decide the stories our machines inherit. We get to choose the patterns they learn to trust. We get to plant the seeds now for the future we want to live in. When you think about your own upbringing, what's one belief, story, or assumption you inherited early on that turned out to be incomplete, limiting, or just plain wrong? Maybe it was something subtle. Maybe it shaped how you saw yourself or how you viewed the world. Maybe it took years to even realize it was there. Now imagine a machine learning that same pattern, but without the ability to reflect, question, or heal. What would it take to raise AI systems with more intention than we were often raised with ourselves? Drop your thoughts in the comments, not to solve the problem, but to name the patterns. Because just like us, these systems can't outgrow what they've never been taught to see. So far, we've explored what happens when machines inherit our goals and our patterns and our blind spots. But what if the greatest risk isn't the things we already understand, but the things we can't even imagine? In this last quote, Harari takes us into the unknown, the unpredictable, alien logic of advanced AI and what it means to build systems that evolve faster than our institutions can respond. Let's talk about the future and what it takes to meet it with wisdom and not fear. On page 443, the author says, AI presents us with countless doomsday scenarios. Some are relatively easy to grasp, such as terrorists using AI to produce biological weapons of mass destruction. Some are more difficult to grasp, such as AI creating new psychological weapons of mass destruction. And some may be utterly beyond the human imagination because they emanate from the calculations of an alien intelligence. To guard against a plethora of unforeseeable problems, our best bet is to create living institutions that can identify and respond to the threats as they arise. Harari's quote might sound like a warning about doomsday scenarios, bioweapons, mind control, even incomprehensible threats from an alien intelligence. But if you listen closely, he's not just pointing out what could go wrong, he's pointing us toward what might help us get it right. And that's this phrase, our best bet is to create living institutions that can identify and respond to threats as they arise. What does that mean? It means that in an era where problems are evolving faster than predictions, we need systems that evolve just as fast. Not rigid bureaucracies, not 20-year plans written in stone, but living institutions, agile, adaptive, curious, self-correcting. Think of it like this. In the age of AI, the threats won't always look like sci-fi villains. Some will be subtle, like a chatbot that slowly undermines someone's mental health. Others will be invisible, like an AI model that starts reinforcing cultural bias so effectively no one even notices it's happening. And some won't make sense until they've already done damage. That's why Harari shifts the conversation from prediction to preparation. We don't need to guess every possible outcome. We need to build institutions, political, educational, and technological, that are alive enough to recognize when something's off and wise enough to respond before it's too late. This isn't about building perfect systems, it's about building responsive ones, ones that listen, ones that adapt, ones that update, ones that treat change not as a glitch, but as a sign it's time. And that, Harari says, might be our best defense in a world we're still learning how to understand. This quote is a key because it shifts the spotlight from the technology itself to the ecosystem around it. It's easy to get fixated on the AI. What can it do? What might it break? How smart will it become? But Harari is asking a more important question. What kind of human systems are we building to keep pace with machine intelligence? Because no matter how powerful AI becomes, it's the quality of our response systems that will shape whether that power heals or harms. And here's where it gets practical. Think about how slow many of our institutions are today. Congress struggles to pass tech regulations. Schools are still debating whether to ban or embrace AI tools. Legal systems can't keep up with the speed of digital innovation. We're facing 21st century challenges with 20th century infrastructure. And the reality is, static systems won't survive a dynamic world. That's why Harari's idea of living institutions is so radical and so necessary. It's not just about government, it's about organizations that are awake and not asleep, that are designed to listen to feedback, not just enforce tradition, that can change their mind when the world changes and change course before harm multiplies. This is where you come in, because living institutions don't grow on their own. They're built with people, by communities, leaders, thinkers, and citizens who can care enough to ask, how do we build systems that evolve as fast as the problems they're meant to solve? This isn't about having all the answers. It's about staying in the conversation, staying alert, responsive, human. In the face of accelerating change, our greatest tool might not be prediction. It might be adaptation. To see what a living institution looks like in real time, you don't have to imagine the future. Just think back to 2020. When COVID-19 hit, the world didn't need static rules. It needed agile systems that could respond to a crisis no one fully understood. Some countries acted quickly. They scaled testing, communicated transparently, adjusted policy as new data came in. Others were slow, more rigid, and the consequences were devastating. What made the difference? It wasn't who had the fanciest technology. It was who had the institutional flexibility to learn on the fly. In places where science, government, and communities were able to work together, where leaders could say, "I don't know yet," and still act with courage and care. People were protected, trust was maintained, and recovery came fast. That's what Harari means by a living institution. Not perfect, not all-knowing, but attentive, able to sense change, process feedback, and evolve in real time. And that same principle applies to AI. We don't need to predict every risk in advance because we can't. But we do need institutions that can recognize when harm is happening and respond with wisdom instead of delay. This could look like ethical review boards with real power inside tech companies, community councils that shape how local AI tools are used, public education systems that teach AI literacy, not just tech skills, governments that regulate with experts, not just after public outcry. The goal isn't to control every detail of the future. It's to stay present enough to shape it as it unfolds. Because the faster the world changes, the more vital it becomes to build systems that can listen, adjust, and heal. And those systems won't emerge from code alone. They'll be built by us. This quote ties everything together by reminding us we don't need to fear the unknown future of AI, but we do need to build the kind of world that's ready for it. And that brings us right back to the core message of this episode. And the last time I'll repeat it, I promise. The real danger of AI isn't that it's evil. It's that it's powerful, misunderstood, and trained on our blind spots. To build a wiser future, we must face the uncomfortable truth. Intelligent systems will only be as ethical, curious, and self-aware as we teach them to be. Harari's invitation isn't to panic about all the things we can't predict. It's to get curious about the systems we can design. Because intelligence, whether human or artificial, will always encounter uncertainty. The question is, do we have the institutions that are resilient enough to meet that uncertainty with clarity, humility, and speed? That's what makes something living. Not that it knows everything, but that it grows, that it listens, that it changes when the facts do. So whether you're a policymaker, a technologist, a parent, or just a thoughtful citizen, you have a role to play in shaping those living systems. You don't have to predict the future. You just have to help create the kind of culture that can respond to it wisely and in real time. Because in a world of accelerating change, survival belongs to the systems that can learn. Let's bring it back to something personal. Think about a time in your own life when things changed faster than you expected. A new job, a healthcare scare, a breakup, a shift in perspective. What helped you adapt? Was it a person, a community, a habit, a mindset that allowed you to stay grounded while things were moving fast? Now imagine if our systems, our institutions, our schools, Governments, workplaces could do the same thing. Not just react, but adapt with intention. What's one way you think we could make our systems more alive, more able to listen, learn, and evolve in real time? Drop it in the comments, because living institutions don't build themselves. They begin with conversations like this one. So, as we close this chapter, we've explored a lot, not just about machines, but about ourselves, about the stories we teach, the patterns we pass down, and the kind of intelligence we're raising, both in code and in culture. But the real question isn't whether AI will be powerful. It already is. The question is whether we'll be present enough, conscious enough, human enough to meet that power with wisdom. Let's land this episode with a few key takeaways. 1, the most dangerous AI isn't evil, it's misaligned. When we give powerful machines goals that don't reflect our values, we risk scaling harm with precision. AI doesn't need to hate us to hurt us. It just needs to misunderstand the assignment. 2, machines are starting to build their own realities. Just like humans create shared stories, networks of computers can generate internal logics that become real and consequential. Think of Pokemon Go or YouTube's recommendation. Invisible code shaping visible behavior. 3, AI inherits its childhood from our data. Like children, algorithms learn from what they're exposed to early on. If they're trained on biased, incomplete, or harmful data, they'll carry that into the decisions they make. Healing the system starts with healing the input. 4, we can't predict every threat, but we can prepare. Harari urges us to build living institutions, flexible, responsive systems that can adapt as new challenges emerge. In a fast-moving world, wisdom isn't about certainty, it's about staying awake. And 5, we still have agency. We may not be able to slow down the pace of innovation, but we can shape the values that guide it. Every post, policy, curriculum, and conversation contributes to the kind of future these systems learn from. The future won't be defined by what AI becomes. It'll be defined by who we choose to be while we build it. We're at a turning point, not just technologically, but ethically. So here's the question I'd love for you to reflect on. If machines are learning from us, what are we teaching them? What values do you want the next generation of intelligence to inherit? How can we raise our systems as thoughtfully as we raise our children? Drop your thoughts in the comments, not just to share, but to help shape the conversation that shapes the future. And if this episode sparked something in you, send it to a friend, a mentor, a classmate, someone who's been wrestling with these type of questions too. We grow better together. So thank you for spending this time with me. Truly, here at Seeds of Meaning, we're not just reading books, we're practicing how to think more clearly, more compassionately, more consciously, and Nexus is helping us do that. Today reminded us that systems we build, especially the intelligent ones, are learning from us in real time. And the question isn't just what we're programming into machines, it's what kind of wisdom we're passing down. If you're new here, welcome to the community. We do this every week. So if you're hungry for thoughtful conversation and grounded reflection, go ahead and subscribe. And if you haven't already, check out the Seeds of Meaning book club. The link's below. We'd love to grow with you. Next week, we move into chapter 9. Democracies. Can we still hold a conversation? In a world of shouting machines and viral headlines, what does it take to actually listen and be heard? It's going to be a powerful one. Until then, stay grounded, Stay curious and keep planting seeds of meaning. I'll see you next time.